Hi, I'm Kim Hamilton Anthony, and I am chopping it up with Buck.
I'm like, man, what is going on?
Stop telling me you want to get to the NFL and you don't come out here and show me.
They hit and hit and hit all the time.
That's what life is all about, is that especially if you could pass on information.
All right, I have been waiting to have one of my good friends in college. I mean, we were at college at the same time. Our husband and I were battling against each other, became really good friends. It's great when you can have somebody that you know personally, but also that has a great story. So I want to welcome Kim Hamilton Anthony to Chopping It Up with Buck. It's great to have you on. How you doing?
I'm good. It is. I'm so glad to be
Yeah.
here. Thank you so much for having me.
I hope I can emulate the little people that you had when you were interviewing when you were really young, because I thought that was interesting. I used to do some of that stuff too as an only child, so it struck me.
Yes. So yeah, and what you're talking about is when I would interview my stuffed animals beside
Yeah.
me. Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to have a talk show like Johnny Carson. What a 5-year-old is up watching Johnny Carson for? I don't know, but I was in that space. So
Well,
yes.
yeah. And it was really interesting because being an only child, like you were talking about, but I had a lot of extended family. I had cousins and relatives. So when you talked about being a tomboy, you reminded me of my aunt Suzette, who used to hang with me and Gary, my uncle, who they were basically my age. So they were like my brother and
Right.
sister. And we would go
Okay.
out and play all day and do all kind of things and just didn't want to go in the house. And you growing up
Mm-mm.
in Richmond reminded me
Yes.
of how hot it is down in Southeast Texas and Beaumont and Houston.
Mm.
Tell me a little bit about that and you putting this book together, because it's a really good book, Unfavorable Odds. We'll talk
Hmm.
about it and I'll let you plug it. But what gave you
Yeah.
the impetus to write the book, but also the stories that you
Okay.
have in there that are just so well thought out and written?
Mm. Thank you. I appreciate
Mhm.
that. I never thought about writing a book before, but I started speaking like 23 years ago. Somebody volunteered me to speak at this mayor's prayer breakfast in Fort
Who
Lauderdale.
volunteered? Was it Cor? It wasn't Corbin,
No,
was
nope, he didn't, but now he
it?
does. He's
I know.
always volunteering me for stuff.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine signed me up to speak. They needed somebody to share their personal story at
Okay.
this breakfast. And there were 2,000 people there. And John, do you remember John Tesh from Entertainment
Yes.
Tonight?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
was the keynote speaker, and I was just going to share like 5 minutes of my story.
Yeah.
And so I got up, I shared, and I didn't even think I really had a story, but I started to remember some things that happened. And after that, I started getting asked to speak at different events, and
Mhm.
they always wanted me to share my story. And they would come up to me afterwards and say, Kim, where's your book? I want to read the rest of your story.
Yeah.
And this happened for years. And finally, my husband, Corwin, said, Kim, you have to write a book. So
Mhm.
I originally wrote the book so that when I spoke, people could have the rest of my story if they
Yeah.
wanted to, and I could offer those books to them. So that's how it started.
Wow, that's amazing. It's always, I think people say we all have a story or a book
We
within us, right?
do.
Some
We
people have
do.
more, they have that gift to do it. But when you started putting it on paper
Hmm.
and reliving some of the stories that, I share some of that with me, especially your relationship with your dad, your mom, your grandmother.
I started writing, and it took me 10 years to
Okay.
get to the end of this book. And the reason why it did was because I had suppressed a lot of things I had gone through.
Mhm.
And as I would write these stories I did remember, all of a sudden these things started coming up.
Mhm.
Abuse, the things I was exposed to. When I was 6 years old, my father taught me how to roll joints. And I would be, at these drug parties, the only child in the smoke-filled room rolling joints, making him proud. And growing up, when you grow up that way, you think that's normal. And I didn't find out that my life wasn't normal until I went to UCLA. So as I'm writing these stories, all of these emotions are coming up, but it's also given me an opportunity to deal with them, process them, and heal. So I talk about my relationship with my father, which was not that great. He was
Yeah.
in and out of my life. And there were times when he would leave for weeks on end, and we didn't know if he was coming back or when he would come back. And because we didn't know who would walk through the door when he did come back, it was always a stressful time for me. And I would literally hear his keys jingle at the door and go into panic mode because I didn't know who was going to walk through that door. And I would literally hide in my closet until I figured out if it was safe to come out. So it was a hard life. And my mom and me, we moved from place to place. We lived with different family members because we couldn't always afford a place to live on our own. And that was challenging. And I was embarrassed by it because I felt like in a sense, when I've worked with low income single moms and trying to help them to overcome poverty. And what I've learned in the process is that the way we lived, my mother and me, living from family member to family member, that's considered homeless. And the only reason we weren't out on the street is because my grandmothers would, allow us to come in until we could get back on our feet again.
I love what you said about how you got into gymnastics, because you were just really all the way. Nadia Comaneci was your first thing that you saw. What else do you remember about Nadia Comaneci and the love of gymnastics?
Oh my goodness. I was one of those kids. I was upside down more than I was right side up. So we lived in the city, I guess you could call it. Yeah. Our backyard was dirt. We didn't have grass. So there wasn't this park-like setting that I could flip around. So I flipped anywhere I could, over fences, off stairs, on the brick sidewalks outside of my grandmother's house. And I was always doing something dangerous, right? I was fearless. So one day, of course, I was growing up back when they had 3 stations on the television.
Oh, yeah.
And so you watched whatever was on.
You don't want to watch the soaps. You're outside.
Right, yes. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yes. So I was the TV was on and they were watching the Olympics. And Nadia comes on and she's doing gymnastics, which I had never heard of before. And what it did for me, I thought, oh my goodness, what I do every day is actually a real sport. And so after that, I started wanting to do gymnastics, and I literally jumped up and said, I can do that. And I started flipping in my grandmother's living room. She had this good room where the good furniture was. Nobody was allowed to be in.
Did it have the plastic on it?
No plastic, which is funny. That's fun. So I would take her good pillows and put them on the floor and flip around, bumping into lamps, tables, knocking things over. And she was not happy about that. So she kicked me out of her house and said, no, you need to take that outside. But she wouldn't let me take the pillows outside. So I had to be smart because we had brick sidewalks, concrete stairs. Yeah. And I began to teach myself gymnastics, and I taught myself cartwheels and side aerials. And my mother thought that I was going to break my neck, or my grandmother used to walk home from the bus stop, coming home from work, and I would run to meet her, and I was always saying, Grandma, look. And she would say, girl, you gonna bust your head wide open. So that was what I heard almost every single day. So my mom got me into gymnastics class. Yeah. It was a recreational class on a Saturday. We didn't have a car, so we had to take 2 city buses to get there. And Buck, when I stepped into that gym, it was like the heavens opened up. The angels were singing. There were mats and all of this equipment, and everyone's flipping around. And I took my class, and I got in trouble a lot because I was bored, maybe, and I wanted to be on the high beam when we were supposed to be on the low beam. So I would get on the high beam. I would get on the high bar and swing around, and they kept having to reprimand me and tell me to stop. And then at the end of the class, it was an hour-long class, the coach calls me over, and I had gotten into so much trouble that day, I thought he was going to tell me to never come back again because, you just don't belong here. Yeah. But instead, he asked me where I had been training. Where have you been training in gymnastics? So I said, on the sidewalks outside of my grandma's house, which is where we were living at the time. And he had me show all the skills that I had taught myself. And right then and there, he invited me to join the team, the competitive team.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about it in the book. And like I said, I'm working on it. The story of an unlikely champion of favorable odds. forwarded by both Tony and Lauren Dungy, who I got
Yes.
to know Coach Dungy really well in Indy, and great man and his wife.
Mm.
What was that like, and what was that as you were going through a sport that was for white women? And
Mhm.
you're a taller young lady too. I don't know, I mean, from
Yes,
a
I'm
gymnast perspective.
right. I'm five
Yeah.
seven.
Yeah.
And when I started, I was 9. I was almost 10 years old. So that's late already for the
Okay.
sport of gymnastics. And I was looking at this the other day. Virginia, my school, the elementary school I went to for kindergarten, through 5th grade, they were desegregated in 1972, and I started in 1973. So I was on the beginning of being in this space with where kids from all backgrounds could be together.
Yeah.
And I had white friends, black friends, and got along with everyone. I didn't really give it a second thought until Roots came out in 77, and that kind of shifted things up a little bit.
Yeah.
And before that, I hadn't heard my family talk about race, but after we watched Roots, then the conversations started to occur, and I would hear them talk about their own stories of the
Yeah.
things that had happened to them that were unfair, that were hurtful. So when I went into the gym, I was never taught this directly, but somehow I caught, and maybe it was from watching that series, that I was less than.
Mm.
So I actually thought I would never be better than any of those girls because of the color of their skin. And because I was being told that I shouldn't even be doing gymnastics because it's a white girl sport. It wasn't a sport for little girls who looked like me. So I was just happy to be in the room, happy to get a turn on beam. And one day there was a coach, a black coach, a woman, and she was probably in her 20s, and she had been a gymnast, and she seemed to be extra hard on me. But the truth was that she saw something special in me that could make me better than the other athletes in the room. So one day I was competing. It was my very first year of gymnastics. I had made it to the state meet, and I
Okay.
was competing on floor exercise. And we had to do this is kind of hard to. We had to do what's called an arch dive roll. That was part of the compulsory. Everybody had to do the same routine, and you're supposed to jump and arch your back and then roll out of it.
Okay.
And so I saw this little girl do and I thought, wait, if she can do that, then I must be able to do it because she looks like me.
Hmm.
And the next time my turn was up, I did that arch dive roll, and my coach came up to me and said, "Where did that come from?" And I ended up winning third in state on floor exercise that year. And I believe it was because in my heart, seeing another little girl do gymnastics with excellence almost gave me permission to do the same.
But
Amazing.
I'm still blown away that you were the first African American gymnast at UCLA. Is that I
Well, yeah,
yeah, tell me about that because that's amazing.
I wasn't even thinking along those terms as becoming a first. That didn't
Yeah.
become something that I recognized until years later. And when people started telling me, "Oh, did you know you were the first black woman on scholarship for UCLA women's gymnastics?" And
Yeah.
I thought, "Oh, no, I didn't know that." And so I went there on scholarship and also became UCLA's first NCAA national champion in women's gymnastics. And then I found out maybe 4 or 5 years ago that I was the first black woman gymnast to win an NCAA national title, period.
Tell me about your experience at UCLA and just all the things that you were able to do and accomplish during that time.
Well, first of all, I'll say that when I went to UCLA, it was culture shock.
Mhm.
I'm coming from all black neighborhood. We don't have a car. Maybe we borrow somebody's car. I'm living, in poverty basically, and I have these two different lives. On the US national team, I'm living in five-star hotels, eating at five-star restaurants, paparazzi, limousines. police escorts, all types of things. And then I come home, there's eviction notices on my door because, letting us know when we need to vacate. There is no furniture in the living room because we can't afford a sofa and a chair. There's little food in the refrigerator. I'm eating and my mother is watching me because we don't have enough for the both of us. So I'm living in these two different worlds. And then I go to UCLA and kids are driving around in BMWs and and they are spending lots of money. And I felt it was hard because I couldn't go out with my teammates. Gymnastics, it's an expensive sport.
Yeah.
So many of the people, at least back in my day, if you did gymnastics, you usually came from a family who had the means and the resources to pay for your training, whereas I had to clean the gym after practice. And so I come to UCLA and it was a different place, but I knew, and I got homesick, but I knew that if I stayed, I would absolutely love it because the campus is gorgeous. And how many freshman class, at the orientation, our athletes orientation, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was our speaker, right?
Yeah. You guys have done Athletes in Action. You've done,
Yeah.
The Super Bowl breakfast, which I think is all those things that help other Christians in their walk and faith. And then also the counseling that you do from, the events and everything with marriage and spirituality. I think it's really cool because not only are you guys doing it, but you're living it.
Yes. And that is something that started early on, probably not early enough in our relationship, but I had gone back home and was held at gunpoint and my life was threatened. And it was after my freshman year. And I was just hanging out with my friend. And that was it wasn't common to be have a gun, held point blank to your forehead, but it was common to be in that type of environment for me. And so after that happened, I started to realize that I was not as invincible as I thought I was. You know how you're young, you think nothing's ever going to happen to me. And I started thinking about my life and my purpose and, what's the purpose of life anyway? And that next year is when Corwin started stalking me and we met and, we ended up becoming friends and eventually started dating. And he is the one who shared that I could have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. So I'm covering NBA game courtside. Charles Barkley says something crazy. So this is how long ago it was. He was still playing. And he said something wild and smacked the ref on the behind. And it was hilarious. Don't ask me what it was because I don't remember now. Yeah. But I called to my producer. He was in my ear. And I tell him what happened. He says, okay, we're coming to you during the commercial break. I share the story with everyone. It's live television, about 1 million or so viewers watching. And it was a good report. The producer is laughing. I hear the guys in the truck laughing in my earpiece. And I thought, I just contributed to the program, the game. And I went back over to my little spot where I would scope out the game. And it was, I don't even know whether it was my mind. It was just this voice just came to my mind saying, what does it matter what Charles Barkley just said? And how in the world is that helping anybody? And at first, before that happened, I thought I was living my dream. I had all access, to the players, the coaches, and, it was something that I had wanted to do and was doing. And after that, I realized that I wanted to use my voice to do more than just entertain people. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to change lives. And shortly after that, we got the opportunity to become chaplains with one of the NFL teams. And we spent 10 years there. And basically what we did was we helped the players and their wives, the coaches and their wives, and the front office staff to grow spiritually. Those who were interested in doing that, we would help them with spiritual growth and personal growth. And we served on staff with Athletes in Action and were placed there to do that. And then we also did the same thing, marriage enrichment at the league level to help. I mean, you think about it, these couples, they can't go to a marriage conference because they're too recognizable. So
Yeah.
we basically would take the opportunity to them and provide resources for them to
Mhm.
grow together as couples and in their marriages.
And I see all the
I know.
beautiful young women that are gymnasts, and it's just kind of
Yes,
cool, right?
it
How does that make
is.
you feel as you watch and you were kind of a
Ooh.
trendsetter?
Mm. Ah,
You were.
I, I,
Yeah.
I get emotional,
Yeah.
Buck. I do because I was the only one most of the time.
Hmm.
And there were a handful of Black gymnasts who were competing at the elite level or the
Yeah.
national level. And we all knew each other. Our families sat together in the meets, and people would be confused. Well, whose parent is whose? Because the parents would take care of the athletes no
Hmm.
matter who they belonged to. So people kept getting our families mixed up because we became our own family because there was just so few of us. And it was hard. And I don't know if you realize this, and I don't know if you've gotten to this part in my book, but when I went to UCLA, the challenge for me was that I didn't quite fit in socially with my teammates because they lived a different type of lifestyle than I was used to on a social level. In the gym, it's my sisters. We
Yeah.
were together. They supported me. They had no idea the drama that I was going through outside of the gym. But then I didn't fit in with the Black students there either because I was doing gymnastics, not because I couldn't relate to them, but because they didn't believe. And I can't say this for every student, but one of my friends told me that they were saying that I was whitewashed because I did gymnastics. I felt rejected.
Mm.
And to see the amount of support that the Black gymnasts at UCLA and everywhere are getting now from everyone, including people who look like them, it warms my heart
Yeah.
because I didn't have that. I had my mom who was my strength and she was the one who kept me going. But and there were some people who supported us, at home to try to raise money to help pay for my training and everything. But to see them now and to see them own who they are and be proud of it. Oh my goodness. I mean, I was just at a UCLA meet Sunday, like a couple
Oh,
days ago.
okay.
And just to watch them is phenomenal.
I know you've had coaches over the years, but who else has
Hmm.
played a role in helping Kim become the woman that she wants to be and, doing all the things that you wanted to do and accomplish?
That's a really good question.
Hmm.
There were people who were supportive off and on. When you are doing well, some people come into the picture and they take credit for what you're doing and how they supported you. But then through the hard times when you need them, they may not be there. So it's hard to say. I had my coach, Jim.
Hmm.
Jim Rowe was with me in club, and he really helped me to become an excellent gymnast. But you know what? My coach, Jerry Tomlinson, he was the head coach at UCLA when I was there. He is the first one who told me that I was actually a good gymnast. So even though I was competing at Olympic trials, winning gold medals for our country, I still didn't think I was a good athlete until I went to UCLA and Jerry Tomlinson told me that.
What are some of the
Hmm.
things you've done that you look back and kind of say, man, that was pretty cool?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that comes to mind is winning the South African Cup, winning the all around in the
Okay.
South African Cup during apartheid.
Mm.
It was an amazing experience. It was very emotional because the students, Black students, weren't even allowed to be at the meet to watch me compete. And we I have a whole chapter about it in my
Yeah.
book, and I talk about the experience that we had there. But to know that there were other people who looked like me who weren't even allowed to compete or watch in some cases. And then I go into that country and I win the all around title. And they hand me 24 roses and, a trophy or a medal, whatever it was, to represent Black people, brown people in that space by far is my favorite accomplishment.
Pretty awesome, especially in a place that's apartheid and everything else that was
Yes.
going on. And I know we were, as students, always fighting against it, right? But
Mm.
you were there competing against it.
Yes.
That's pretty
Yes.
incredible. Well, it's great to have Kim Hamilton Anthony on, the story of an unlikely champion, unfavorable odds. Go pick it up. I got a signed copy, so I'm just. But Kim, it's always great to catch up with you. Every time I see you, it warms my heart.
Uh,
Even though I don't think Corbin was a stalker, he knew.
no, he was stalking. No.
But hey, look, he did it the right way, and he did it with
Yeah.
that smooth UCLA thing. Go ahead.
Before you go, can I tell you something? I
Yeah,
don't
go
know if
ahead.
you knew this, but I would not get to practice. I would not be able to get back to the dorms in time before the cafeteria closed.
Okay,
So I would be hungry a lot of times, and he used to sneak food to me
that's
from
awesome.
the football players' training table.
Yeah, for the training table. But
Yes, it was nice.
we always could bring a to-go thing and we
Mm-hmm.
would share it. So I'm glad
Yes,
to hear he took care of you in that
he
way.
did. He did. He did.
Yeah. And Kim, we always do something on this show that we like to call a 2-minute drill because it's football, right? You gotta have a
Okay.
little football theme. So it's just rapid fire questions. First thing that comes to your mind, you answer.
Gosh.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's easy. It's easy.
Uh-oh.
Just have fun with it. Tommy burger or fat burger?
Tommy Burger for sure. Triple,
Oh,
triple chili cheese.
Ooh.
Yes.
Well, whenever I get to LA, I miss the Tommy burger that used to be there. They turned it into
Mm-hmm.
an In-N-Out, but that's good
Right.
because
I like
sometimes you
In-N-Outs.
didn't get all the way down to Fat Burger, but that Tommy burger was
Right.
spot on. So
Oh
tell me
yeah.
your coolest Jackie Joyner Kersey story. She's the
Oh my
greatest.
goodness.
I got to hear one from you because
Oh
there's
my
so many
goodness.
out there about her.
Um, goodness. Well, Jackie was somebody I leaned on, and when I would go through the drama from home,
Mhm.
I would go to her first
Yeah.
because I felt like she could understand it because of the environment she grew up in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we used to have conversations just about our sport. And she's like, I can't believe you run and you hit the horse and all this stuff. And I said, I can't believe you run and jump in the dirt. I was like, I would never jump in
Yeah.
the dirt. So we're, just going
Yeah.
back and forth with each other. But she would give me like her little leotard, well, they're not they don't call them leotards, I don't think. But she would share some of her gear with me, and I
I
would
know the tights
wear
and
it in
stuff.
practice.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
She's
But she
she's such
was
a great soul. I love
yes.
getting to know Jackie and
Mm-hmm.
all the track folks because we would work out with them and
Yeah.
they put us through the ring, but it was
Oh
good. Made
goodness.
us better. Made us
Mm-hmm.
better.
Yeah,
So
she was sweet.
this is an easy one for you. Basketball, UCLA basketball or
Oh
UCLA
gosh.
football?
Well, before I started dating my husband, it was basketball
Okay, that's
because
fair. That's fair.
I loved watching basketball.
Yeah.
And but football, I would say football because that's the sport my husband played.
Okay. So if
Yes.
you're trying to teach somebody like a layperson the
Yes.
move, what's the hardest move to explain to a person that doesn't know anything about gymnastics?
Uh, I think okay, so I taught Michelle Pfeiffer how to do cartwheels as
Did you?
she for
For what
Batman
move?
Returns, for Catwoman.
Oh,
Batwoman Returns. I
wow.
was supposed to double Annette Bening, who was supposed to be Catwoman, but she got
Yeah.
pregnant and Michelle Pfeiffer took her place. So I
Okay.
still trained Michelle Pfeiffer to be cat-like and prepare for the movie, and she wanted to learn cartwheels and things like that. And even though cartwheels may look easy, it's not
And you can
necessarily.
do them without your hands, right? You can
Yes,
do, yeah,
yes.
you can do what do they
Yeah.
call those?
Side aerial.
Busting your head wide
No, oh
open.
yeah. Yes, yeah. Yes.
So
There's
how
always a
long
third
did
of
it
it.
take her to learn that though? How long did it take
Now
her?
we trained for a few weeks
Hmm.
and it's if you don't have natural gymnastics ability, which very few people do,
Yeah.
then it's a little hard to explain how to coordinate your hands and your legs and kicking over the top. So what I do is I demonstrate it for people so they can see it, and I'll try to do it in slow motion if possible. So I think, if I'm teaching someone, most likely I'll teach them a cartwheel, not a back
Yeah.
tuck although I taught Corwin a back tuck.
Oh, wow.
So
Hey, you scored on that one. That's we were watching down the field, 2-minute drill. We got KimAnthony.com putting it in the end zone. Since you like football better, I had to
there
let you
we go.
know.
Okay.
Well, good having you on. We'll have to have you back and talk, especially during gymnastics season and the Olympics, because I know you're locked into it, and we'll make sure to get you back on again. It's nice having you on the Chopping It Up
Thank you.
with Buck Show.